But I do think that grief really is an invitation. If you allow it, it is an invitation to really stop and check in with who you are, what you're about, what's happening in your life. And if you can find strength to use that, that's where I found the gratitude in it, because I'm like, okay, thank you for letting me see how I can kind of change and how I can use these tools of joy and gratitude to kind of really enrich my life in new ways.
Hey, I'm Tanya Wilkinson, and this is Death on the Daily, bringing the conversation about death out of the shadows and into the mainstream. Because along with birth and change, if there's one thing that's going to happen to us all, then death is it. And we're going to explore how death actually shows up for us on the daily in a multitude of ways, and how when we allow ourselves to accept and to be with death, how it can teach us a whole heap about how to live this life well. When you're deep in grief, have you ever felt that the idea of feeling joy or gratitude is impossible? If that's where you are now, or where you one day find yourself, know this: you're not broken. You're not alone. I have been there too, many times. And this forwards path can and will hold beauty for you. My guest today shares from her lived experience of multiple losses how over time the forwards path through grief can hold joy, gratitude, and hope. Where being with death and grief and allowing the deepest of pain has turned the volume up on life. Rooted in presence, gratitude for the simple things in life, and gentle practices that help us to stay open to life, even in the midst of our profound pain. Charla Grant is the founder of the Grateful Hearts Club, who draws on her own experience of loss and hope to help people who feel far from joy to get closer to it. Through creative events, workshops, and exhibitions that blend art, heart, and strategy that bring meaning and light into the darkest of times. I've walked this path and I continue to walk this path, as does Charla. So we are not here to give you anything that feels like toxic positivity, toxic gratitude, or anything that's just completely unhelpful. What we're here to do today is to have a conversation where hopefully you can feel inspired to meet yourself exactly where you are in any moment in time, and to look around you and to see, are there any breadcrumbs of joy present that I can just grab in this moment? So Charla, welcome to Death on the Daily.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here chatting to you.
Oh, I'm really, really excited. And let's dive in actually, because we've had many conversations about death on the daily and how we experience it. So I love in this space for you to share your perspectives of what death on the daily means to you.
Do you know what? When we chatted a little bit before this podcast, I really sat with that question when you asked me, like, what does death on the daily mean to you? And it's really made me reflect on how much death and grief have been quite a constant in my life. It's been a companion, it's been a teacher, it's been a fuel, it's just been pretty constant, and it really has kind of shaped me in the person that I am. My sister passed away when she was 4 and I was 6. Yeah, so very early on, grief was something that I was like really close to, and especially at that age, when I reflect now and I know a bit more about children and their development, I understand how losing someone so close to you at that part of your life can have such like an impact on you. And I was thinking, and I was looking back and thinking about all the other people that I've been close to that I've lost. And there's I've probably been to about 13 or 14 funerals. And it might not seem loads, but actually when you think about that in the landscape of your life, that's quite a high amount of death and grief to kind of process and understand and get your head around. So it's been such a teacher to me, death, and subsequently the grief that comes with it, that it's kind of everywhere and in everything. it really has. It has made me who I am today. And in the toughest moments, it's been my biggest kind of challenge. But actually, where I am at the moment, I'm starting to really feel like the gifts that grief can give you. And it takes a lot of strength and a lot of reflection to get there. But I'm noticing that more and more, really, and feeling like that gratitude for some of those lessons and the ways that it's kind of made me who I am.
That sense of gratitude. And I think it's so powerful how you shared that it does, because I think in this space, and I'm really conscious as well of when I speak about my journey, of almost not because of the journey that my husband and I took with our daughter, I guess my biggest epicenter of grief. I'm really conscious because actually she brought a lot of joy in that we could connect into immediately. But actually, that isn't going to be the story for everyone. So I'm really pleased that you mentioned around that, of actually there's that opening, that unfolding, the eventual connection into gratitude, as well as an acknowledgement, because actually going to that many funerals and having that much death in your life, that is a lot. I was working it out. I was almost doing a little average of going, okay, well, that means every however many years, if you averaged it
Yeah.
out across a lifetime, like that is a lot. When we think that, actually then we carry forwards that grief, and it is a long road with it.
And it's the amount of time, I guess, that you carry that. And you know, just, I don't know, there's probably lots of griefs that have happened in my earlier years that I didn't really kind of process or understand. And it became a little bit of a norm, I guess. I just was not, yeah, I didn't really understand. And I do think that, I mean, I will just say disclaimer, I haven't gone straight from grief to gratitude. You know, there's been a lot of
Yeah.
work in that gap, because
Yeah.
I, like you, I think that's how we kind of found each other, experienced baby loss, and our daughter passed away in childbirth in 2013. So that was, you know, the ultimate kind of grief, really. That's really been the thing that I think has kind of shaped me and changed me, and encouraged me in many ways to look at life differently. And I can't say that I was a grateful person, I'm sure, in my life, but I take joy very seriously, and noticing and acknowledging and appreciating the small stuff. I don't think I would be able to do that in the ways that I do without experiencing that, really, that, you know, just earth-shattering loss of our daughter.
Yeah, I mean, we I know you do a lot of work with the worst girl gang ever. We are in the worst girl gang
Yeah.
ever. And I really, really appreciate as well that openness that you have to sharing in your journey, and how that of the finding gratitude. But again, it doesn't have to be that instant thing. So I would love to hear a little bit more around your path to those lessons and to the gratitudes. And I know that you obviously work really rooted as well in the connection to that joy space, that again I feel can, in these moments, it's understandable if our sense of joy, that connection to it, just shatters. So I'd love to hear more about your journey forwards, and obviously then we can flow into how it's really inspired your purpose and mission in your life.
Yeah, so I guess, like I said, I already had this kind of background and this awareness of grief and loss in my life, even if I didn't quite understand how much it had, like, affected me. I don't think you do that work maybe till a little bit later on, when you kind of have the tools and the, you know, the wisdom maybe to just take a look at things in a bit more detail. I do remember our kind of quest for a family. You know, it went on for quite a long time, and there was lots of losses within that time. So when our daughter Olive passed, it was obviously um, beyond heartbreaking, that time, but we still were in a process of trying to have a family. So we still had to almost pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and we were kind of like on to trying for the next baby and the next pregnancy. And we didn't get there. So our quest ended in infertility. So there was so many losses wrapped up in that time. But I do remember when, after Olive had passed and those really early dark days, and my heart is with you, because I'm sure those, you're still in those early days in my eyes, even though I know some time has passed. I just remember only focusing on what I didn't have, and I was so lost in that. And having a family seemed so easy to everybody else, and it was going on all around me, and I was so focused on, that dream. That's all I could think about, that I didn't really give enough space and time to the things that I did have. I overlooked all of those things. I had a great husband. We had a lovely house. Like, you've got a loving family. I've got amazing friends. Like, there's all of these things that were in my life that I just didn't see. I was just lost in this kind of comparison and this dream that I wanted to get towards. And I remember thinking, there was just one day, life was really hard at that time, like getting out of bed, getting up, getting washed, getting dressed, clean bedding, that kind of thing. Yet the tidy house all felt like such an incredible struggle. And I just remember a day where I managed to get up, I managed to wash my hair, like the bedding was fresh, the sun was shining. I didn't quite get out in it, but I could see it through the window. And I just remember laying there on my bed and just thinking, I just felt for the first time a connection to joy that I hadn't felt before.
Wow.
And it was in those really small things, like the smell of fresh, clean hair, and like the smell and the feel of the new bedding. And like, I remember seeing the sunshine come through the window, like casting shadows on the wall.
Wow.
And I just really noticed in a whole new way. I had a whole new appreciation for the smallness of that moment, but also the presence and like feeling really connected to those things. And I just felt I had this sense of hope that I hadn't had. And it just made me think, like, okay, like this is where the gold is for me right now. These tiny, tiny moments are a pathway. These small, I call them crumbs of joy, like these small, tiny crumbs. They can add up to like a full biscuit, but you have to notice all of these crumbs to appreciate the biscuit, And then that just sent me on a little bit of a journey of like thinking, when I had my first cup of coffee, I had it in a great cup that I loved, and I felt sun on my face, and I just really used the power in these small moments, and I felt that gratitude in a way that I'd never felt that before. We're such on a more train in life, aren't we? We always seem to want more. We're never like satisfied. You want the holiday or the weekends away, or you're always looking ahead almost. Everything's so planned. And I was very guilty of that. That's how I lived my life until that point. But I do think that grief really is an invitation. If you allow it, it is an invitation to really stop and check in with who you are, what you're about, what's happening in your life. And if you can find the strength to use that to kind of shift your focus or to send you in a little bit of a different way, then that's where I found the gratitude in it, because I'm like, okay, thank you for letting me see how I can kind of change and how I can use these tools of joy and gratitude to kind of really enrich my life in new ways.
Wow, Charlotte. I mean, thank you so much for sharing. And I mean, I resonate on so many levels. On that level as well, on the journey of beyond baby loss. If you get by, I was actually on a radio show earlier in the week. I was like, I hate the word trying and all that pressure and everything. Instead of saying just connect into yourself, look after yourself, and again tend to that grief. There's always again that more train. I really connect into that from my journey in this space of like, what's more, what's next, what's the goal, what else can I do, what should I, that it's almost like comes in and becomes very controlling. And I think what's really powerful, and I always talk about breadcrumbs of joy too. Again, we're so in alignment.
Yes.
Radio show I was on earlier in the week, I was literally talking about that, of finding my little breadcrumbs. And in my darkest days of those, realizing actually, is it a cup of tea and feeling the warm sun on my face? So there's a real reconnection to the simplicities of life that I believe we've lost. Like our whole obsession with, I don't know, the designer handbag lifestyle, or the jet set holidays, or the old stuff that, I mean, to be honest, I've never ever had a designer handbag in my life, but all the stuff that it's that striving for things where we just, it's about like money and status, takes us away from the fact that we are humans that are built on simple things. We're built on our taste buds and the delicious food that we eat, or the delicious smell of just being, you know, when you're in a freshly, like you said, she had a freshly made bed with the fresh sheets and everything. There's all of these simple pleasures in life that are available to us. So I really, really, I love everything that you do. And I know how important it is, because from my own journey, I know there are those days when it's just like, there isn't, everything just is, I feel like I've just gone into like a gray world. Everything feels like that. So for anyone out there who might be in that gray space and really, really feeling it, what would you suggest? What could those first steps towards just gathering that little first breadcrumb towards, as you shared, that biscuit? What are the little steps that they could take?
I just want to say also that I think gratitude sometimes can get like a bit of a bad rap. I think there's a lot of kind of almost toxic gratitudes that you can fall into that trap. And I would never want anyone to think that it's like this plaster that you can kind of slap on. You know, those comments like, oh, well, you know, it could be worse, or, you know, there's someone else that, you know, has had it worse than you. Like all of those things I like fundamentally disagree with. And we're talking about death and I'm talking about gratitude, but I guess it's been a long journey to get to it. And it was a tool that it helped me shine a light on what was good in my life. And then when I did that started to feel a little bit bigger. It didn't take away from all of the sad and all of the difficult stuff and how much of a struggle life was, but it did start to show me that there was hope and that there could be joy again. And I think, I mean, interestingly, I lost my dad in 2023. So I've done all of this work. I created the Grateful Hearts Club out of the love I had for our daughter, to share gratitude with people. And that was my aim. And then in 2023, when my dad died, I sort of slid down the mountain again, and I had to restart and I had to relearn everything. Joy felt too joyful. Gratitude felt like an absolute stranger to me. All of the tools and the tricks and the ways that I'd learned to kind of support myself and my well-being just like evaporated, it felt. So when you ask me that question, I can say on like quite sort of good authority, really, because I'm a forever student of this work, and I had it and I've lost it all. And now I'm on my own journey to kind of rebuilding myself and rebuilding joy and like cultivating more joy in my life. So I would definitely say don't put any pressure on yourself to feel any kind of way in this time. I've really, really allowed myself to sink into my grief, because one thing I'd learned in all the other griefs that have happened in my life, I didn't go there. I put a mask on. I carried on. You know, all of the losses I had after Olive, I just, you know, I went back to work. I didn't really honor them. I didn't allow myself to grieve them in the ways that I should. I kind of rushed grief. I just, you know, we don't grieve very well, do we, in this country? So I rushed through all of these things. So when my dad died, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to use this as an opportunity to really sit with this. And grief is like a gateway to any other griefs that you've had. And it showed me all the griefs that I hadn't done the work properly on.
Wow.
So it was like a portal back in time to every grief that I've had. So I allowed myself to sink. So if you're in a place where you are grey, like never mask the grey, like really honour that. I think I said to you, there's a quote that I really love, and it's that the height of your joy is the same as the depth of your grief.
Yes.
And when I think about that and I hold on to those words, because I want to feel the depth of my grief, because I really want to rise and feel the height of my joy. So yes, letting yourself be whatever your grief needs, I think, is really important. But I really think joy, it's not to be overthought. It can be so simple, and there are things happening around you and in your life all the time. The difference is when you're grieving, especially, and when life feels grey, you stop noticing. Those all-consuming moments where the waves feel really high and life just feels really, really dark. All of this joy is still around you, but it's you're noticing that has changed. So I would just think about where are these small moments happening for you? Like, what's happening in your day that just gives you some comfort or some peace? Or there's the term glimmers, like, it's quite popular now, these kind of glimmers of joy and gratitude. And they really help calm your nervous system, make you feel safe, give you that moment of calm. And often when you're breathing, you're in fight or flight. Your nervous system is not in a sort of settled, calm place. So if you can be more aware in these small moments and just give yourself a chance to notice and like sink into them a little bit longer, you're just starting to give yourself these moments of calm and safety. And I think once you notice something once, your brain does this really lovely job of noticing that moment again. So there's this part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And I always think of that as like a search, like a Google search, or, however you search for things. But if you set that filter right, your brain will naturally try and search for whatever the thing is that you set it to. So every day I wake up, regardless of how I'm feeling, regardless of what the day could look like, I always say I choose to see the joy today. I say that every day because I want to give myself the best chance of seeing whatever joy comes my way.
Oh, I choose to see the joy today. That's so powerful. But also I think it's really powerful, that acknowledgement that it's okay to sink into your grief. It's okay. In fact, it's good. In our last discussion, when you shared that quote with me, it immediately resonated, because one of my biggest lessons from death and grief is the more that I am present with the absolutely raw, visceral, terrible, gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, shattered into pieces times, the more it turns the volume up on everything else. I felt so much more, to your point around those simple joys. Again, that was really a light switch that, again, didn't come on immediately in the moment, but it did turn on for me to say, actually, wow, okay, I am so much more appreciating simple walks out in nature, food, etc. But actually from that, I choose to see the joy. I think what really is coming through from my own experience is I'm thinking about, so every Friday, we're recording this on a Friday, I'm really excited. It's takeaway night, and we normally get like jerk chicken or something. And that's such a ritual, and it's a real moment as well, where no matter what the week has brought, I'm always just so present. I'm like just a little kid, absolutely loving it. But when I was grieving, I was very conscious about those moments. But that's not to say that the taste and that experience was as vibrant as, for example, I had known it to be, or as I know it to be again. But in those moments, just me being conscious with, this is a ritual, this is a lovely thing that brings me joy. It's my moment. It's sacred to me. Even though I was only feeling probably about 40% of it, I'd say all of my senses just felt really dull. There was still that 40% there, or maybe it might have been sometimes less, maybe more like 20%. But it was there. And again, that sort of the term glimmer, I love that. And obviously what it does to our nervous system, because when I connect into those moments, just me being conscious to that, this is a simple joy that I love. Let me connect in. And there's just a little bit, my nervous system is, okay, take a breath. And again, that muscle memory, it reminds me then back to all of the lovely, lovely Friday night. So I think it's really, really powerful that these simple things And sometimes I think when I work with clients, I always talk about, sometimes it's not about doing mental push-ups from the perspective of people who go hard in the gym.
Mm.
But sometimes to that point of our brain and our like the mindset and stuff like that, it is just trusting that actually if I say that I choose to find joy today.
Mm.
And actually, even if we don't, that's okay. But it's
Yeah,
almost trustable.
exactly.
It's gonna come.
Yes.
There'll be that day, then one day I have the clean, beautiful sheets and I
Yeah.
can the sunshine and I have a nice whatever it is, cup of tea, and I'm gonna feel it on that day. So it's also that
And
trust.
I think it's also important to remember that you might not feel it. You know,
Yeah.
you might notice it, but you might not feel it. And I
Yes.
always in my very early days of grief, like it felt like there was a kind of glass wall and
Mm.
joy was on the other side. So I could see it, and there'll be moments that like a previous version of me would be, you know, would be soaking up and would feel
Yeah.
so present in. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden that same moment would happen and I'd be there. You know, I've had holidays, I've had trips away, and I look at the
Mm.
photos and I can see what's happened and I can see the joy, but I
Mm.
haven't truly felt the joy. So
Yeah.
it's perfectly understandable that that might happen and really natural. And, you know, this work for me and what I'm sharing with you really has taken a long time. It's like a
Yeah.
life's work to this point to understand things in this detail.
Mm.
I think what's really important is that you don't give up on noticing. You know, you still set that filter and you still give yourself the best possible chance to see it, because one day when you kind of journey your way through those darker moments, you are going to get to feeling it again. But if you're not noticing it, you're not going to get to enjoy that feeling as much, you know, because it could get overlooked. So I guess it's just like understanding that all of this comes with kind of a process and time and comes in waves. And you know, waves are high and then they're small and then joy's there and you can see it but you can't feel it. Some days you can feel it. Like it's such it's so unique to everybody. It really is. And this is just, I guess, a friend asked me actually when I was talking about these losses that I'd kind of had in my life. Because you know, you meet some people, they haven't lost anybody. They haven't been to a funeral. And I always remember her saying to me, she was like, "What the hell do you think it all means? Like, what does it mean? Like, why have you been given so much grief to have to deal with?" And I really sat with that question because it really kind of made me reflect on these losses and look at my life and everything that's happened. And then it just made me even more passionate about this work and about sharing what I do know about it, because all of these different people that I've lost and all these different reasons, all these different ways, all these different times, like there's wisdom there. There's learning.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
this opportunity that grief gives you to really like evaluate, to look at your life, to like notice this small stuff, to like think about how, you know, how I view myself, you know, the relationship that I have with myself. It's
Yeah.
really kind of like it's lifted the lid on all of that stuff.
Mm.
And if you choose to kind of go there and look into it and to really sit and deal with grief properly, I think it's just a unique opportunity and a chance and an invitation, like I said at the start. It's that invitation, it's a doorway that you walk through, and then you're into this other world almost, which is dark and it is scary and it's overwhelming, but also can be joyful in like, you know, an incredible way if you're ready and you allow it.
Oh, I love that invitation to go through that doorway, because the only way is through it. If we numb and we avoid, we push it down, but it's gonna erupt in unconscious ways at some point. We have to reckon with it. And oftentimes, actually, I think there's when I think about how grief can erupt, it can erupt in anger or other things that we wouldn't even pinpoint and say, "Oh, that's my grief speaking to me." It's just we've suppressed. I think about how much pain and suffering happens in the world at the hands of people who haven't processed their grief and the trauma that is. is within them. But I love as well, just with that invitation through and that acknowledgement that actually when we go through that door, it's not to say, oh yeah, it's we don't move on from grief. It's not that suddenly you unlock this like joyful like Disneyland park where you're going to be having the most joyful, most beautiful times always. It's that acceptance. For me, it's that acceptance that we are only whole as humans if we accept it all. If we say, I am coming for the full bag of this experience, and therefore I know that step by step and with grace and compassion, I'm gonna go through it. But also what I think is interesting, because you mentioned earlier around toxic gratitude, and obviously there's a lot of toxic positivity. There's a lot of spiritual bypassing. There's so much of, and it feels so present to me in this world. And I also call myself out, because before I went through grief, I was definitely that person who'd be like, we can just smile through everything. I was like endlessly optimistic. And even if I put myself in work situations and where it used to manifest and cause me so much stress in my body because I was denying the wholeness of my experience, to say, actually, I'm crapping it about this one thing, or I'm really upset about that, or I'm devastated and heartbroken about this ending, or whatever it was. I just pushed it all down and plastered the smile on.
Put your mask on.
Yeah, put my mask on. So I'd love to hear your perspectives about where we are in society when it comes to that toxic positivity, and really where we need to go. Because just to honor you, I think people like yourself, like myself, like others in this grief space are speaking our truths. To me, that feels like a big medicine that we need in this world. But yeah, I'd love your thoughts on any of these areas of the toxicity that can ultimately take us away from the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I guess from my just experience, it's really hard, isn't it? Because there could be two people with a similar message in some ways, but there's someone who's walked a path of loss and grief and has arrived at these tools with all of this wisdom and this knowing. And then there's kind of the same message, which maybe isn't kind of heartfelt, maybe, and doesn't necessarily have the wisdom behind it. I guess it's just tuning into what feels really honest and authentic to you. And I just am really, I just am really conscious of how gratitude can be kind of perceived. And even when I started, like, it was like two separate ways. I felt like I almost had to sell gratitude to people because they were like almost like rejected it, really.
Wow.
Or it was people were kind of repulsed by it because you get this picture of someone like in Bali, like dressed head to toe in white, drinking a cocktail, and like, you know, they've obviously used gratitude to manifest their dream life, and like you can do it too, like that kind of vibe. It was kind of two paths, you know. So I've had to really try and find my place in helping people understand what it is in an authentic. This can help you not necessarily improve your life, but can really help you connect to the goodness in your life. I really had to work hard at that. It was a lot harder than from what I thought it was going to be when I first started out.
Wow.
Yeah, but do you know what happened? I set the Grateful Hearts Club up in 2019.
Yeah.
And then I had this period of like trying to sort of like explain it to people in the best way. And then lockdown happened. And then all of a sudden, everybody just like instantly got it, like understood it. And it was weird that, yeah, everyone just, we all lost, didn't we? We all lost in that time. We lost our lives. We lost, you know, lots of people lost lives. There was a huge kind of transformational period where people, like, they couldn't have the holidays. They couldn't have the nights out. They had to go back to basics, live a simple life, notice the small stuff. So it really felt like everyone had this kind of re-education in the power of gratitude and small joy. So I think it sort of like helped people understand. I think we lost it pretty quickly afterwards, I will just say.
Yeah, business as usual starts again, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I do think, I know from the community that I've managed to build with the Grateful Hearts Club, I think there is this real sense of like connectedness between everybody, because they either know about joy, small joys and gratitude because they've lost and they're grieving, or they understand, like in that post-lockdown world, how important it is not to lose sight of that small stuff. Where I really get a sense of that in the kind of community that I've managed to build there.
Wow. Oh, yeah. I also am really, really connecting now into that perspective when we were on lockdown as well, and things slowed down. We had space and we could do that exploration. Because for me, what had happened was went into lockdown, was working in Formula One, no races, and I was still working throughout it, but it was a lot slower. It was a lot more. And so I had that space. And for me, it was when we went back into the office, much like the community. I was like, no, I need to keep with this way of being that I've relearned, because it ultimately
Yeah.
connected me back into my humanness and the rhythms that we're built on. Obviously, not to detract from the big loss that was happening throughout COVID, and obviously the physical perspective, as well as you shared, all of these experiences and the couple of years that we did lose in what we could be out there doing, etc. But I think it's really interesting as well around how our culture just doesn't allow for that space for the simple things that do that from a neuroscience perspective are proven to help us as humans to walk through this life and to walk through it in a way that is focused on our well-being, on our purpose, on all of that. So really, really interesting. But also when you talked about your community, I would love as well to hear from you around that role that community plays for us in helping us to find joy, to connect into gratitude after grief as we're moving through that. Because again, I think that's the power of community, isn't it? That where we're just doing these, I don't know, doing like a YouTube video or something in our own time, like that's good and that's supportive. But we're humans, we're not islands. We are here for our interconnection. So yeah, what role does community play, and how can we support each other through this in helping us to find that joy after grief?
I think community is so important. Just as humans, we need to feel connected. I think it's really what I've noticed from kind of who hangs out at the Grateful Hearts Club is just that there's this shared commitment, I guess, to not lose sight of these small moments. And I guess when I share, it helps people kind of acknowledge what's going on in their own lives. And you know, sometimes what it's like, I struggle with social media sometimes because there is a lot of kind of sharing and putting yourself out there. And depending on where you are or what kind of day it is, it doesn't always feel very sort of natural to me. And I'm learning to only share when I've got something to say. And that's kind of my own rhythm of things. But it kind of like, if you think about what I said about the brain and about that filter, you know, if I share a moment that I'm connected to, then that helps set that search filter in another person's brain to be like, oh, well, Charla enjoyed that moment this morning. Like that seemed really joyful. Like maybe when I have a coffee in the morning, I'm going to sit in the garden. And that it's like these little mini prompts for people, and you know, people tag me in and say, oh, like, this is where I am and this is what I'm doing. And it's like sharing in joy, I think is like, you can definitely, I called it joy jacking, I think. Like you can joy jack on someone else's joy. Like
Oh,
it's an actual thing, you know, you can
wow.
still feel the same feelings as if you were experiencing the joy yourself.
Oh, joy jacking.
I
Yes,
know.
love that.
I don't know if it's a term, but I thought about it and I Googled it and I couldn't find anyone
I
talking about
love
it.
that. You
So
need to get that like trademark
yeah,
title.
well,
I love that.
it's just important to remember, and that's why you have to get out of the way of your own work sometimes and think, if
Yes.
I post this moment and it brings me joy and that in turn helps someone else feel joy, then how wonderful is that? Right?
Oh,
That's sort of mission accomplished, really. But I think there is the real, like, gratitude really does help you connect to each other, and that work around sharing and joy, I just think is a really powerful, really beautiful
yeah.
way to be. And
Mm,
often I'm kind of like use the Grateful Hearts Club to send messages of gratitude to other people, or
yeah.
my community will message me with really kind, lovely things. So there's this kind of like, I guess it's that reciprocity, isn't it? Of like giving and receiving. It feels
Yeah.
like this lovely kind of circle of gratitude. And the more I seem to give, like the more that comes back. So
Oh,
I think that community element is like, it's definitely like it's a huge part of who I am.
yeah.
And whether it's online or whether it's in my local community, I use the work that I do to help just like everyone feel connected.
Oh, Charlotte, I love that. And I love that you brought in the spirit of reciprocity. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think that's where, because I always go on the assumption that people listening to this podcast are probably grievers, majority, not always. But I think for us as grievers, and obviously doing it in a way, because I appreciate for some people, they're not going to be like, hey, I'm just going to jump on a podcast and talk about this. But in our community, to be able to share that, and as you said as well, sharing our little joys so that other people can understand them. And what I'm really connecting into as well when I think about me and my grief is it was also the friends who knew what my little things that I loved are. So as well, just those little nudges that people in my community could give me, like my
Yes.
cousin who was like, you love walking in, let's go for a walk in the forest, I'll come round. Or the friends who brought around my favorite food. Or I was watched on Instagram the other day, it was a clip of Richard E. Grant, and he was talking about how Nigella Lawson, I mean, his friend being Nigella Lawson is pretty helpful for when you need some comfort food, isn't it? But
No.
the fact that when he was grieving for his wife, that Nigella Lawson every Sunday would leave meals for the next few days on his doorstep. And just these little things again that just can help us to root back in to those simple joys. And again, as you shared, it's just about building those connections up that are already there. It's almost just firing up the synapses, isn't it? To say,
Yeah,
lovely.
definitely. It's so important. And yeah, that whole, there's this term that I love, it's called collective effervescence. Have you heard of that?
Oh, no.
And that is like people sharing in joy, like together. So like if you go to a gig, you know, and everyone's singing,
Yes.
or when large groups of people get together and they're all experiencing joy like at
Oh,
the same time. And Instagram is probably like a very small, you know, a small version of that, but it's that kind of feeling, lots of people all together, all experiencing that same feeling.
oh.
And while I think about that, I haven't officially kind of launched it just yet, but it's kind of on its way,
Mm-hmm.
like a joy finding challenge, I suppose.
Yes. Tell me
And
more.
I'm hoping that as many people as possible will be part of it, because I really want to have this kind of collective joy.
Yes.
And yeah, I've never done anything like this before. And since I've kind of sort of worked my way through this last grief, and I've sat with like, I always think, what if this stuff has happened to me, how can I turn it into something that's going to help others? And who are those people, and how many people can I help? Like, they're the questions that I ask myself. So I've kind of created this joy, find your joy challenge, and I hope that as many people as possible take part in it, because I think that we need joy in the hugest way possible at the moment, and not as, again, not as a plaster, but you know, as an act of resistance, really, like to cultivate joy in our own lives. Because if, you know, we know the world is in chaos and it's a really hard place to be, but if we can cultivate as much joy in our own worlds and keep ourselves topped up and our well-being is the best it can be, then we're the best people we can be to do all the things we need to do to help, you know, help those around us. Like, make your corner of the world the best it can be. Like, sometimes that's the only control you have over anything. So the thought of all of these people joining together to take part, and the impact and the ripples that that could have in their own circles, in their own worlds, wherever they are, because it will be an online challenge. Like that, the thought of that just really excites me, and I hope that it will be successful. You know, unattached from the outcome of it, because let's be honest, I can't lie awake at night worrying about how it's going to happen or what's going to happen. But I've got to try. You know, it's my effort to try and to do something, I guess, with this this grief that I have for my dad, and obviously the love that's there, I set up the Grateful Hearts Club after Olive passed,
Mm.
and this challenge is kind of like my latest learnings about life and about joy, and turning that love, essentially, like my grief is my love for my dad. So I
Mm.
turned it into this, basically.
Turning your grief is that love for your dad, into this, and obviously also with Olive, and so beautiful. Charlotte, sign me up. Where can we sign up for this?
Oh, hopefully there'll be some kind of link somewhere that I can share with you for you to share
Yeah.
with your community. Because if you are, like you say, if you're listening because you're grieving, I hope that it will help. It might be too soon, and I completely understand
Mhm.
that, because, like I said, joy can be so
Yeah.
joyful, too joyful.
Yeah.
But if it's right for people, then I would really welcome and love as many people as possible to be part of it, and just see where I'm not a particularly great salesperson. I'm not very good at asking for things, but then there'd be some exchange for it. But I just really hope that yeah, it helps, and we can have this kind of collective effervescence feeling together in something. And especially it will be in September. So it will launch on, I think, the 21st of September, which is World Gratitude Day. I seemed
Mm.
apt to kind of like celebrate that in some way.
Beautiful.
But to have that, to be really focused in on joy and noticing joy as the seasons change and you start to move towards autumn and winter, where things get a bit darker and a little bit harder. If you can go into that time with the kind of the knowledge and already setting your filter
Yeah.
right for this winter time, I hope it will just help, you know, make a smooth transition as the seasons change.
Beautiful. So we're gonna head to the show notes. We're gonna have the or it'll be there right now as you're watching this. There will be the link where you can sign up to Charla's newsletter that will give you all of the information about this. And it's so beautiful. And I think the 21st is either on or the day before the autumn equinox as well. So it's a beautiful turning point and pivot moment. And Charla as well, for anyone who wants to connect with you and just have you in their world, where can they find you?
So on Instagram mainly is where I've been hanging out. So that's at the Grateful Hearts Club. But as I said, I'm very sporadic. Maybe that will change. But if you're looking for someone to post consistently, and to be polished, then that's not the account for you. I just literally share when I have something to say, and however it comes. Yeah.
Well, Charlotte, it has been such a joy. So on
Oh, I
brand
know
for
we've said
everybody.
joy an awful lot for a conversation about death. I am very aware of that, but
Well, I think that for me really honors the wholeness of it, because I also think it was interesting in my grief coach certification. There was a question around meaning making, and what do you want
yeah.
people to know about you and your grief. And for me, actually, my answer to that was, I want people to know that my grief is a part of me. It will always be a part of me, and a very big part of me. And any one point in time, I can feel the pain. I can just connect into it, but that's not all of me. And so for me, I think the power of this, much like gratitude practice, is actually it's realigning the negativity bias that we naturally have as humans. I think for me, and it's not saying that it's again, it's not, you always have to have joy, but for me, there's a real power in saying, actually, as we move forwards with our grief, there are going to be joys to be found. And who knows, your experience might be like ours, that actually, if we allow ourselves to feel the pain, then we turn up the volume on those joyful moments. So I think it's really, really important work, because particularly in a world that is so grief and death avoidant, the reason we avoid it is because we think there's no joy to be found here. And actually, my own personal experience is definitely the opposite of that. Not always joy, but some beautiful and meaningful moments of joy. And as you shared, of those beautiful gratitudes that we can have.
Like you say, two things can be true at the same time. Like
Yes.
the duality of it is something really important to acknowledge, because you can feel so many opposing emotions at the same time.
Yeah.
So
exactly this. Meet yourself. Permission to meet yourself
yeah,
exactly where you are. And if you are a
yes,
grieving supporter or griever's supporter, permission to bring them loads of lovely food and things that bring them joy.
yeah,
Give them those
definitely.
gifts.
But
Well,
when you know your joy, you can add your joy in. That's the power in knowing what it is. Because if you don't know what it is, how do you know?
true.
How do you know what to add?
Very true. Very, very true. Let's all get clear on what brings us
Yeah,
joy. And then let's give a little in emergencies SOS list to everyone.
yeah.
To me, like, in emergency, go through this list and deliver it at my door. Thanks very much.
I love that. And what a beautiful advice to offer up to someone who doesn't know how to help people
Yeah.
when they're grieving.
Yeah. There's a therapist called Rio Richards. I think it was Rio. I hope it was Rio. She's been on the podcast before, but I feel like I saw her sharing a template that was basically around that, of like writing out, what's your, almost if you had a menu of how can people support me in my grief, but with very specific prompts, because, and I've done this a million times, that how can I support you? What can I do? For someone who's grieving, you're like, I don't know. I don't even know myself. I don't even know myself. I don't know the world. I don't know what's going on. But actually, it was such a beautiful little resource where it was like guiding you through, okay, let's write out, my favorite food is this, my favorite, whatever it is. I like to go for walks in the park or whatever. And then you can just give it to everybody and be like, all right, just read, don't ask me, read this and bring me some of that.
Oh, I love that. That's a lovely way to end and get me thinking about what my joy menu would look like.
Oh, me too, actually. I'm thinking I'm going to do my joy menu.
I'll ask the community, the Grateful Hearts Club community, maybe they can share theirs as well. That would be a cool thing to do.
Oh, that's a lovely, lovely idea. Oh, we'll enjoy that in community.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Charlotte, I'm so grateful to you. I'm so grateful to you for bringing such beautiful joy in the truth of what joy is. Again, joy, I believe, can have that coexistence alongside our pain. So I'm so grateful to you.
I think it's so amazing that you're shining a light on just this topic. I don't think there's enough talk about it. And I've always spoken on, and I've spoken a lot on podcasts, and always it's been related to kind of baby loss and really focusing in on Olive and how that impacted me. So I am grateful for the opportunity to really zoom out and think about grief and just my life, because it's really given me some kind of clarity on like, you know, my purpose and why I feel like I'm here and how I can help people. So thank you.
Oh, Charlotte, all I can say is just keep going, because what a powerful purpose. You're already creating ripples in a way that honors you as well in those times when you just need to cocoon. And I'm so excited to see where you flow with this challenge and to see what the future holds, as you shared with that hope that we can all connect into for each of our futures. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
All of my gratitude to you for joining me for another Dead Conversation. Death on the Daily is edited by David Strutt. The music is Set Free by Katie Gray. And I am Tanya Wilkinson. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would be over the moon if you can rate, review, and subscribe. It really, really helps me to get the word out there. And if you want to say hi or to hear more about my work as a coach and death doula, including how I support my clients to navigate their death on the daily, then all of the ways that you can connect with me are in the show notes. I'll be back soon with some more Dead Conversations. And in the meantime, take good care of yourself and others.
There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's something inside. And we'll never make it, and we'll never break it.